Oliver is an ugly, disgusting nerd who became an orphan after watching his mother get ganked by a group of magicians. To avenge his mother, Oliver entered the Magic Academy while pretending to be weak. Despite being one of the strongest magicians in the world, Oliver's mother was very kind, caring, and she's very hot. She wanted to reform society to make it a better place, but she was betrayed by her best friends. Her comrades chased her and used several spells, making sure she feels all 128 types of pain. Luckily, she was rescued by her best friend, Emmy. Emmy took her to an underground passage and then she backstabbed her. Rule number 1: never trust anybody. Since then, Oliver was adopted by his grandparents who trained him to do a John Wick maneuver and clap that cougar Esmeralda. After turning 15, Oliver enrolled the Kimberly Academy, the most prestigious magic academy in the world. You know they're prestigious because they have a talking flower at the entrance. Not because he wanted to learn more magic, but because those who clapped his mother were teachers in that school. Vanessa, Francis, Enrico, Demetrio, Baldia, and Emmy, known as Esmeralda and the headmistress of Kimberly Academy, are all in his hit list. Oliver thinks about the promise he made to make the teachers pay for what they did. He makes his way through the gate of the academy and is greeted by a flower, who tells him that there is no business that can be conducted in Kimberly grounds. The flower tells him that the only way to get revenge of the fallen is to get a victory royale. But also, he needs to get a winner-winner chicken dinner in the academics, as only 80% of the students which enroll at the academy graduate, while 20% of them get consumed by their own magic. As Oliver walks towards the ceremony, he meets the side characters in the story and quickly engages with them. One of the students is a samurai who catches their attention with her attire and friendly demeanor, making them all stop and stare. Oliver wonders why he stopped, because the girl doesn't have that gi yacht. But they all stared at her even though she has done nothing. He thinks it could be her clothes or because of something he feels in his heart, like a premonition or fate. The girl turns around and rizzes him up with a smile, and the others before they all continue to the school building. They all arrive at the ceremony where there's a parade of magical creatures. A girl named Katie thinks that it's wrong for a troll to be among the magical creatures walking in the parade. A boy named Guy tells her that it's fine because it's a troll, a different species to human beings. Some trolls attack people and some people tame and train them to serve them. Katie gets upset by this because she believes that trolls are kind creatures and they're only aggressive because humans invade their territory. Guy argues that the trolls in the countryside destroy fields every year. He asks if it's okay for trolls to invade human territories. Katie argues that that piece of land used to belong to the trolls. Irritated by their Twitter arguments, a student named Pete stops them from arguing any further and tells them to take to Reddit. The two students apologize and let Pete continue his reading. He's trying to learn more about the creatures. He looks at them and compares them to the ones he sees in his book. Oliver tells Katie and Guy to talk about the matter later and maybe get to know each other first. They both agree, and as Katie is about to introduce herself when she gets hit by a spell. The spell is casted by another student, turning on Katie's legs on autopilot. Oliver, Guy, and Pete are confused and tell her not to run to the parade. However, she can't control herself. She tells them that she's trying to stop, but her feet are moving on their own. Oliver and Guy run after Katie to stop her. While Pete stands there, doing the Pikachu meme face, he's approached by a girl named Michela who asks him if there's something wrong. Pete doesn't know yet, but before long, he and Michela notice that the troll is walking towards Katie. Michela hurries to help Katie as well. Pete doesn't understand what is happening, but feels compelled to help due to peer pressure and runs after Michela. As Katie keeps running, the spell wears off, and she stops running right in front of the troll, and the magnet behind her back activates. Oliver and Guy become increasingly worried about her and try to run faster. The troll gets closer to Katie and raises its hand to hit Katie, but a voice yells at it to stop, and the troll immediately stops. The samurai, whose name is Nano, appears in front of the troll and asks Katie if she can run, but Katie can't. Nano tells her to stay where she is while she deals with the troll. She brings out her sword and gets ready to fight. Oliver and the other students arrive with their swords in hand, ready to fight as well. They think that Nano fighting the troll is not a good idea and decide to attract the troll's attention. Michela raises her sword and uses a spell which electrocutes the troll, but the troll absolutely mogs them instead. They decide to do it together, but Oliver stops them. He doesn't think they can do it at all, even if they use their magic together. Guy becomes angry because he doesn't want to just watch Nano get hurt. Oliver comes up with a plan and asks them to use wind magic. He asks them to create a strong wind and target the troll on its head. Michela tells him that a wind spell only is not enough. Oliver yells that there isn't enough time to waste and they should just do as he says. They agree and generate enough wind. Oliver follows up by throwing in a different spell, which makes the wind form a dragon behind the troll. The dragon makes a loud noise, which Oliver created using a random loud noise to make it sound like a dragon's roar. The troll hears the dragon behind it and looks back in terror. This creates an opportunity for Nano and Katie to run away, but Nano is like, "I've been waiting for this chance my entire life," and uses this chance to attack the troll. She jumps, and as she prepares to strike the troll, her hair color changes to white, indicating her white power. She successfully hits the troll on its head, and the troll gets a severe head trauma, getting a medical bill of $78,000. Too bad he doesn't have Obamacare. After, Nano feels like her hands are numb due to the skill she used on the troll. She tells Katie that she will carry her when her hands become better. She thanks the other 4 students for helping her by creating an opening and praises them for their spell, which she admits almost scared her. The entrance ceremony continues, and the students get inside the building. Oliver chats with Nano, and she admits that she didn't have a plan when she stood in front of the troll earlier. She says that the sword she has doesn't even have a blade on it, so it would have been a hard fight for her if it weren't for their help. Oliver tells her that she was being reckless because if their spell had failed, she would have died. Nano cheerfully admits this and says that they saved her life on her first day of school, which means that's going to be Oliver's girlfriend for absolutely no reason. Oliver doesn't understand how she thinks, but is impressed with the skill she used. He thinks about when her hair changed colors, which made it crystal-like, allowing magic particles to easily flow through it. It signifies powerful mana circulation within the body itself. So, basically, he's like Gojo Satoru but female. After, the students meet one of the teachers, Garland, who presents the headmistress, Esmeralda. Esmeralda makes a powerful entry accompanied by her magic that leaves the students absolutely mogged, appearing like she just teleported. She welcomes them to the academy and explains what they will be doing there. The school's priorities are freedom and results, which means that if they die, it's skill issue. That's the reason why only 80% of the students manage to graduate while the other 20% ends gets wrecked. She pours a liquid in a glass to demonstrate a student whose magic goes out of control and destroys them. She explains that people only become crippled when they lose control of their magic and hurt themselves, or when they summon something that drags them back to where it came from. Some of them end up dead after going mad and attempting to clap their fellow students. These students are said to be so bad, they wouldn't last a minute in a Call of Duty lobby back in 2008. She then snaps her fingers to lift the students up and transports them to the banquet room and tells them to sit and enjoy. Oliver sees the other students he was with outside, and they all decide to sit together. They begin to introduce themselves, starting with Michela, the eldest daughter of the McFarlane family, and basically a product of nepotism. She asks her friends to call her Chella, and Guy jokes about her hairstyle, which she says anyone is welcome to faint upon seeing them for the first time. Next is Katie, and she thanks everyone for helping save her life. They ask her why she suddenly started running, but she also doesn't know why and assumes that someone might have been playing a prank. Michela tells them that they should talk about it later and have fun in the meanwhile. She asks Guy for his name, and he introduces himself. He's from a family of magical farmers and boasts about knowing a lot about magic vegetables that taste like meat. A vegan wouldn't know the difference. Pete introduces himself next, and he says that his parents cannot use magic, but he can turn into a cute anime girl. But they don't believe him. Michela commends him for enrolling as an ordinary person because it must have been hard to get into the school. But Pete is not flattered by this and tells her that he's not there to make friends. He's there to be a grumpy side character. He finds that Oliver is looking at him and questions his intention. Oliver tells him that he was just appreciating the book he's reading. Pete is happy to hear that Oliver knows the book, and Oliver admits that he has read it and liked it. Pete becomes excited and starts yapping like the acoustic loser he is about the little stories included in the book after each chapter. But he soon realizes that the others are looking at him fondly and become embarrassed. He then asks Oliver to introduce himself, and Oliver does so, saying that he has older cousins studying at the academy, and they're the ones who told him about it. Michela praises him for his dragon voice spell from earlier, and Oliver reveals that he's just channeling his inner Listen Al Gabe, and he's just built different. The last introduction is Nano. She gets up from her chair and begins by saying that she was born in a samurai family and she only came to this school through fate. She explains that all happened during a war in her country. She was leading 200 men against an army for 50,000 enemies. She clapped many of her enemies until she found herself alone in the enemy's camp. She was going for the life of the enemy leader, but she was stopped by his son, the strongest warrior in the clan. He briefly held her back, but she ended up cutting him down and went for his father. She asked the enemy leader to allow her to fight his son without knowing that she had just killed him. This made the enemy leader emotional because she never even took the time to know his son and killed him without hesitation. Selma then decided to get revenge on her by killing her on the spot without asking for her name. He told his men to fight her to the death, and the men charged at her. But suddenly, their weapons stopped moving due to Nano's anime DS. A mage suddenly appeared and explained he was interested in her talent and potential, and he didn't want her to die there as a nameless warrior. Nano says that the mage was named McFarlane, and he's the one who invited her to join the school. Michela is surprised because her surname is also McFarlane. Nano confirms that he also has a similar hairstyle. Michela realizes that it was her father who invited Nano to the school since he's a part-time teacher there. Pete thinks that Nano must have taken the same type of test as him to get admitted to the school, but Nano denies this. Michela explains that it's because a teacher in Kimberly can recommend a student. This makes Pete feel embarrassed and a little jealous because he was not recommended. He gets ready and goes outside where he feels that the nanoparticles in the school area are very thick. He takes a walk and reaches a fountain where he finds Nano taking a good, old public bath. He feels embarrassed and uses a spell to cover the area so that no one else sees her, except for him, of course. He reprimands her for taking a bath in a fountain that is in plain sight, but Nano doesn't understand what the problem is. She tells him that she's purifying herself from the war that she was in before she came to the school. Oliver asks her about the scars on her back, and she tells him that she got them in the war. He turns around to look at her and remembers a similar moment he had with his mother. Oliver tells Nano to purify herself quickly because someone might steal his game. She says that she's finished, but then finds that she didn't bring a towel to dry herself with. This prompts Oliver to offer her his jacket, and she thanks him for the favor. Oliver thinks about how she is an innocent-looking girl, but her body count amounts to thousands of men. The students then gather for class with Nano now wearing her uniform. Oliver can't stop thinking about her earlier in the fountain, because he didn't bring his again to riz her up. The students quickly go to their first class, which is a sword art class. The teacher is Garland. He explains how a sword technique called one step one spell distance works. He asks for 2 students to volunteer and demonstrate it in a duel. Nano immediately volunteers and Oliver volunteers when he sees this. The teacher brings them into a small ring where they will duel while the other students watch. Before they begin, Garland casts a spell on their swords to make them safe. This is so that the students can't hurt each other while practicing. If a student ever removes the spell to harm another student during the duel, they will be punished. Garland explains that there is no time limit and that the match will end when one of them inflicts a fatal blow to the head or the chest on their opponent. Nano asks Oliver to have an honorable match with her, and Oliver agrees. However, he doesn't think he should use magic in the battle since Nano can't use it. He thinks that he'll just play around, giving her a handicap before calling it a day, but when the match begins, Nano immediately uses everything she's got. This makes Oliver realize that he's wrong for playing it cool. She attacks him, and he's forced to use his magic to escape her attack. He tries to dodge every attack Nano throws at him, trying to deflect the attacks instead of blocking them, but Nano doesn't stop attacking. Oliver thinks about how Nano has killed people before, and how she used the same sword that she's using against him. He wonders how many people she's killed, but while he thinks, Nano comes after him. He blocks her attack, and she mutters something. She remembers something about the place and starts crying. Oliver doesn't want her to cry. He wishes he could wipe her tears away with everything he has. He repositions his sword, and Nano thanks him for his concern, smiling at him. Suddenly, the practice duel becomes a real battle until one of them dies, but before they can do anything, Garland stops them. He tells them to drop their swords because that's not part of the script. They ended up breaking the Kimberly Academy OSHA regulations when they cast it on their swords without intending to. Oliver thinks about what he was about to do. He seemed to be out of his mind. Garland asks them to go and rest for the rest of the class. As they leave, Nano runs after Oliver to tell him that the duel was the most fulfilling thing ever. She regrets that they couldn't finish it though, and tells him that he should stop edging her. She asks Oliver to fight her again when they get the chance, with real swords, no lube, and no protection spells. However, Oliver refuses it because he doesn't want to fight a massive sword-fighting gooner like her. She asks why, and he tells her that he doesn't have to give her a reason. But he admits that he doesn't want to kill her, and he doesn't want her to kill him. He walks away, leaving her behind, and she begins to cry, wondering why Oliver is telling her skill issue. During lunch break, the students sit together and discuss their earlier class of spellology, which was full of surprises. The class was conducted by Francis, who looked down upon the students and told them that the only thing mages ever need is just their wands and nothing more. What she wanted to teach her students was that if they ever called themselves a mage, they should only solve their problems with magic, as she demonstrates by conjuring familiars with her wand. Guy feels that the morning classes were full of surprises and wonders what will happen in their next class, the magical biology, which Katie is excited about. Nano looks sad after the incident with Oliver and doesn't interact much with the others. For the rest of the day, Oliver and the group get to attend 2 other classes. The first is magical biology, taught by Vanessa, who betrayed Oliver's mother. She immediately tells them to throw away their love for cute magical animals because they will be studying them, not make friends with them. The second class is magical engineering, which is being taught by Enrico. The next day in sword art class, the students ask Garland if he can use a spellblade. The teacher had figured that the students would ask this soon, so he explains it to them. There's a specific type of sword art called a spellblade. The spellblade is an ultimate technique that, when used within the 1-step 1 spell distance, will kill an opponent without fail. There are only 6 people who can use a spellblade in the world, making them the strongest. There are many people who work hard to create other spellblades, and others who work hard to invent ways to defeat the existing ones. But none of them have succeeded. The 6 spellblades are a secret, and how they work or who can use them is not known by the public. This has led some people to believe that the spellblades is actually just a massive psyops being fed to the public by the big magic. Later that day, the students hear a rumor about a labyrinth under the school, and Oliver, Pete, and Michella go to investigate it. The rumor says that the labyrinth starts to take over the school building at night. The 3 students reach the place where the labyrinth starts, but they find a dead end. However, a second later, the place transforms and the labyrinth appears around them. Michella is amazed by how the labyrinth has moved so far into the school, even though the sun has just set. Oliver tells her and Pete that new student getting lost. There is something that happens all the time, but they should not worry. There should be instructors and upperclassmen patrolling the area. They hear a female voice which expresses happiness that the students will be relying on it, making Pete excited and approach it. Oliver quickly tells him to stop as he sees a girl whose name is Ofilia. She comments about how cute the 3 new students are and how she could just eat them up, like an ovulating Fujoshi. Oliver approaches her and asks if she's an upperclassman, and if it jiggles, which Ofilia confirms. She introduces herself and grade, surprising the students to hear her last name Salvadori. A male student appears behind her and tries to hug her, but she hits him with a Denji spell, bringing him down. She asks the other students not to mind him because he needs discipline. Oliver introduces himself and reveals that he knows about her. He has read her thesis on the rapid development from interbreeding krakens and Silas, which he thinks was wonderful because it gave him shivers. Ofilia likes that he knows about her and emits a Dami Mami Riz perfume, which makes Pete walk towards her. Luckily, Michella stops him and covers his mouth and nose to stop him from inhaling it. Pete is the only one who gets affected, making Ofilia wonder if the others can withstand it. She tells them that they shouldn't be mad because it's how her body works. She emits the Riz perfume just by breathing. She tells them not to resist her, but Oliver refuses her invitation. He tells Michella and Pete to start running, leaving Ofilia surprised. They run through the labyrinth and soon find a passage where they are stopped by a web of bones blocking their way. A new guy approaches and tells them to give Ofilia some of their time because she is a lonely woman. He introduces himself as Cyrus, a 5th-year student who looks like he should have graduated a long time ago. He tells them that he'll take care of them if they don't like Ofilia. At that moment, Ofilia arrives from behind, mentioning they are very rude for running away from her while they were still having a conversation. This puts them on edge again, and Pete starts to panic. Oliver holds him and tells him to calm down, but he wants to draw his sword. Oliver tells him to stop because if he does, they'll never make it out. As they wait, Ofilia begins to talk to Cyrus, berating him for desecrating the corpses of the people he kills. Cyrus tells her that what she does is far more disgusting, as he refers to her as the Salvadori succubus. This annoys Ofilia, and she threatens him. But Cyrus isn't scared of her because he doesn't like women at all. He is your typical Reddit tier incel. This makes her furious. She brings out her sword and Cyrus activates his magic. They both use a summoning spell to use their beasts to fight each other. Oliver and the group take the chance to run away. However, Cyrus blocks their way with the bone web again. On the other side of the web, Nano appears and approaches. The battle between Cyrus and Ofilia continues, and as they fight, Nano stands in front of the three students and tells them to escape. She wants to join the battle, which will make it hard for Ofilia and Cyrus to come after them. The students wonder what she means, and she tells them that she is someone meant to die, and she has finally found a place to do so. She prompts them to go as she runs into the battle. However, Oliver doesn't understand what she means and decides to follow her into the battle. At that moment, another student, Alvin, ignites the beasts fighting and stops the battle between Ofilia and Cyrus. He tells them that there is a right way and a wrong way to recruit new students, and if they don't abide by his rules, they'll become the first ever rotisserie students at the end of his speech. And he tells the new students not to worry, as he will make sure that they are not harmed. He swears on his title, the student body president of the academy. He stops the fire, and another student appears and places a knife on Ofelia's neck. He introduces himself as Carlos, the fifth-year prefect and Alvin's best friend. Alvin tells Ofilia and Cyrus to get back to the depths of the labyrinth, and that he will tell them later what their punishment will be. The two leave, and Alvin and Carlos apologize to the students for what Ofilia and Cyrus did. They justify that the two were just curious about the newcomers. They help them get out of the place safely, where Oliver's group meet with their friends who were worried about them. Nano apologizes to Katie, who was worried the most. However, Oliver interrupts her and grabs her by the collar, asking if she has a death wish. He is upset with what she did earlier, trying to do a banzai charger when she wanted to join the fight between Ofilia and Cyrus. Michela stops him and asks Nano to explain what's going on her head. Nano then explains that she has no desire to live any longer, which is like a typical Japanese salaryman would say. She doesn't feel joy in life, and that her life doesn't even feel real. It feels like a dream. She wanted to make her wish come true before the dream came to an end. Oliver asks her what the wish is, and she explains that fighting for revenge is not fulfilling, but fighting an opponent who respects you and accepts you is better. She tells them that at her old fighting school, they were taught about the satisfaction of fighting such an opponent. You'd fight them to the death, even though you respected them or fall in love with them. It's a satisfying moment and feeling when you get to fight such an opponent. And it's called happiness or shiawase for the weeaboos. This surprises everyone, and Nano even agrees that it's a twisted idea. She says that she felt that moment when she fought with Oliver the other day, but Oliver refused to fight her, which absolutely edges her. She cries and expresses how sad she was that Oliver pushed her away, even though she was absolutely bricked up to the idea of fighting Oliver to death. It made her so sad that she felt detached from life and wanted to die. Michela tells her that Nano needs to find a new way to live then. She comforts her and tells her that she shouldn't be looking for a place to die. Even if she fell in love with Oliver, who she wanted to clap, or fell in love with the sword she would use to clap him, and vice versa. She should just look at Oliver, who is right in front of her. Everyone there wants to spend their time with her because they're her friends. The others confirm that it's true because they want to have fun together with her. Oliver asks Nano to promise him that she won't try to get herself killed no matter what happens. He also forces her to promise that she will use her sword to protect herself instead. And Oliver promises that he will use his sword to penetrate her defenses. Nano agrees and apologizes for worrying them. She promises them that she won't ever try to throw her life away and asks them to teach her how to live her life better. The next day, they all go to alchemy class, where the teacher isn't a guy with a metal arm and leg. It's Darius, who warns them that the chemicals and potions they'll be using are very dangerous. The students begin, and Pete makes a rookie mistake immediately. Oliver sees this and becomes worried as the solution starts to spark a fire. He uses a magic spell to drop the pot in which the solution is in. He covers the pot with his body, and a small explosion occurs but doesn't harm anyone. The students in class are shocked, and Darius is impressed. He tells Oliver that he handled it perfectly and asks for his name. Oliver tells him, and Darius continues to praise him for his efforts. However, he tells Oliver to choose his friends carefully, which annoys him. After class, Darius meets Oliver in the hallway and asks him to come see him as he has something to talk about. Oliver follows him, and the teacher takes him through a path in an area with a red light. He tells him that they are recovering the research of an exceptionally talented student who died due to skill issue. Oliver asks if the student was consumed by the spell, and the teacher confirms. He says it's the best death any mage can ask for. It helps them a lot, because those who die leave something behind which helps them with new research and their spirit propels them forward. As they're walking, they get attacked by monsters which Darius immediately put down. Oliver is impressed by Darius' power because he beat all the monsters without breaking a sweat, but Darius tells him not to praise him because sucking off of him won't make him an elite student. They continue to walk and come to a cave with a magic circle in the middle with lit beacons around it. In the middle of the circle is a light portal which the teacher refers to as a gate which the monsters use to enter through. He tells Oliver that monsters who come from the gate eat each other, and the ones which they saw earlier were the survivors. They walk closer to the circle and Darius deactivates it. Oliver asks Darius if he was involved in the troll accident on their first day at school. Darius asks him why Oliver thinks he was involved. Oliver reveals that he has found evidence that Darius had planned with a student to make the troll attack someone so that he could get rid of it. Darius doesn't deny this. He only says that Oliver must be special to have been able to uncover that. However, Oliver doesn't understand why Darius did this. Darius replies that he was doing it because his greatest dream is to eliminate stupidity from within the human race. Since the beginning of time, society has always consisted of 1% geniuses, while the rest are TikTok watching, Fortnite playing morons. Bro really thinks he's Elon Musk doing a Neuralink challenge and wants to change that by changing human intelligence itself. However, to be able to do that he must get demi-human samples for research, and the troll is one of them. Darius wants Oliver to help him in his research because he thinks that Oliver doesn't have any talent of his own. He's just an average mage who never accomplished anything. Oliver doesn't appreciate the assessment the teacher has done on him. Darius tells him that he is still worth talking to because he can do anything and will make a good assistant. Oliver asks him what Darius was doing in the year 1525 on the 8th of the 4th month. Darius is not fazed by the question. He instead asks Oliver how much he knows. Oliver refuses to answer the question because he's the one who asked first. Darius asks if Oliver has been targeting him from the beginning and realizes that some relatives of the woman he killed are still alive. Oliver thanks Darius for never changing his character because it makes it easier to still hate him. He reaches for his sword and asks Darius to get ready since they're already within the 1 spell distance. Darius becomes furious and draws a knife. He manages to slash Oliver's neck while Oliver cuts him on the chest. However, Oliver reverses the outcome using the 4th spellblade named Angustavia. With this Doctor Strange anime power, Oliver can watch every possible outcome of the fight. He knows that Darius' skill is far superior to his because in all the scenarios Darius will kill him. However, Oliver thinks that since the future isn't already set and can't be predicted, there must be a future where he wins against Darius, just like the plot of Infinity War. All he needs to do to win is to find that one scenario which he doesn't get cut, because it will certainly take him to the future in which he wins over Darius. He uses the technique to find the possibility that he wants and runs towards it. Because of this, he manages to dodge Darius' attack and uses the spellblade again. He successfully cuts Darius' hand and brings him down. He asks Darius why he just stood there instead of running away. Darius thinks about Oliver's spellblade and is confused because it's Oliver's mother ultimate spell. He doesn't understand how he can use it because it should have disappeared 7 years ago. Oliver replies that there are some things that Darius has taken away from his mother, but there are some things that he wasn't able to take. That's when Darius realizes that the woman he killed was Oliver's mother. Oliver confirms, saying that it's a good thing that he doesn't look like her because it would have ruined his plans. He tells Darius that a pain spell can only reproduce pain that the caster has experienced. So, he will make sure to make Darius feel the same pain he did to his mother. And the only way to stop it is if Darius tells him the right words. And if Darius doesn't say those words, Oliver will torture him the same way that Darius tortured his mother. This terrifies Darius. Oliver tells him to start searching for the magical words to make him forgive him for what he did. Darius tries to ask Oliver to wait, but Oliver uses a spell to cause him immense pain for a brief moment. Darius asks Oliver how he could do such a thing to his own teacher, and if he wants to make an enemy of the entire school. Oliver doesn't answer him, he just casts another pain spell on him, which throws him to the ground, screaming in pain. Oliver asks Darius if he has found the words yet, but Darius hasn't. He apologizes, but then blames Oliver's mother for all of it. This causes Oliver to continue torturing him repeatedly. All Darius can do now is wheeze in pain with no words to say. This makes Oliver so angry that he starts yelling at him to say something. He hasn't tortured him even half the way Darius had tortured his mother. It infuriates him even more to think that Darius can only withstand just some of the pain he dealt his mother. Darius begins to cry when Oliver asks him to say the words he's waiting to hear. He asks Oliver to kill him, and Oliver decides to do so. Seconds later, Oliver's cousins appear behind him and ask if it's over. He confirms and asks Shannon, who he refers to as sister, to not get any closer because it'll make her dirty. Gwyn asks Oliver how his body is holding up to the spellblade, and Oliver tells him that he only used it twice, and that if he had used it for the third time, he would have died. Gwyn forbids him to ever use it 3 times and says that he can only use it when it's necessary. He promises that he and the others will help lead his way for his mission. Another student appears and refers to Oliver as my lord. Her name is Karst, and she helps get rid of Darius' body. Karst is Oliver's bodyguard and swears her loyalty to him. After some time, Gwyn calls out some comrades to assemble in front of Oliver. He presents him with a mask as a part of his coronation. Oliver puts on the mask, and Gwyn asks him to rule and guide them until all the people who betrayed and killed his mother are dead. Oliver agrees and promises to kill every one of them while the memory of his mother's death is still playing in his mind. He managed to bring one of them down, but 6 remain, and he won't let them survive. After returning, Oliver notices something weird about Pete's behavior and body and asks to talk to him privately. He takes him to a greenhouse and asks if he changed of gender. Pete confirms, saying that he had a dream and when he woke up, he was a girl. Oliver tells him that he has special type of body in the magic world. He's a reversee, a person who can switch back and forth between genders. Pete is surprised to hear this, but Oliver continues to tell him that there were signs. Things like Pete not being comfortable around friends of the same gender and feeling uncomfortable about his sexuality. Nevertheless, Oliver congratulates him because now he can clap his brains out. Oliver then leaves and goes back to the Labyrinth to check on Gwyn and Shannon. While looking around, he meets Ofilia. He becomes alert and tries to draw his sword, but stops when Ofilia tells him that she's not in the mood right now. Since he can resist her perfume, she asks him to sit with her because she wants to talk to someone. They chat for a bit, and Ofilia compares Oliver to Carlos because they behave in the same way. They both have the tendency of exploring places they aren't supposed to. She asks what Oliver thinks about Carlos, and Oliver responds that he thinks Carlos is a person who cares about others. However, Ofilia reveals that it's his hobby and he will meddle in people's business if they're not careful with him. She gets closer to Oliver and thanks him for having a talk with her, but warns him to not go on too many adventures while touching his face. She tells him to stay in the school building and study like he's supposed to, especially in the next few months, and she leaves. Oliver goes on his way to meet with his cousins. Oliver tells Gwyn why they met at a weird place last time, and Gwyn explains. The last time they met, Carlos was with them. Gwyn explains that Carlos isn't exactly their comrade, but he has a long history with him. Gwyn tells Oliver to think of the place as his home and train there as he likes. They give him tea, and Oliver tells them that he met Ofilia on his way there. Shannon wants to know where he met her, wanting to go and meet her too. But Oliver tells her that she already left, and Gwyn tells her that she shouldn't try to chase after her because she won't catch up. Gwyn tells Oliver that Ofilia is dangerous, but she and Shannon have known each other for a long time, making Oliver wonder if they were friends. Shannon responds that Ofilia is just the type who likes to get lonely. Gwyn asks Oliver about Nano, who Oliver said used a 7th spellblade. Oliver admits that he isn't sure, but his intuition tells him so. Since he's also an imperfect spellblade user, his intuition tells him that Nano likes him. Gwyn comments that Nano also has a charisma that makes people drawn to her, prompting Oliver to comment that his mother's broom also accepted her. Oliver is also drawn to Nano and finds himself staring at her sometimes. He wants to help her with whatever she needs. Shannon smiles and asks if he likes her. Gwyn tells him to stay calm before he can answer Shannon. He says that the feeling of being drawn by something is of great importance to a mage. Nano will likely be someone that changes the very essence of who he is. Oliver must leave all the feelings that he can't express in his heart and be himself. He must stay loyal to Nano in his own way, and Oliver agrees to this. Later that day, Oliver and his friends decide go camping in the Labyrinth. Oliver warns them to stay safe at all times. They find a nice place to set up their camp and enjoy time together, eating food, sitting around a fire, and chatting. Michela comes up with the idea to name their group because she feels that they have been very close, and she's never had something so special in her life. She feels like giving the group a name would make it last longer. They all agree with her idea and brainstorm to come up with good names. Nano gets up and walks to a wall and draws her sword. She asks everyone to do the same, and they follow her request. She instructs them to form a circle and hold out their sword to the center of the circle so that they are overlapping at the tip. This makes the swords form a rose shape, which she says that in her country is called a sword rose. This is to symbolize their bond in the present. Even if they don't stay friends forever, the sword rose will never be broken by anything. She asks to name the group Sword Roses. They all agree and get so sentimental that they get embarrassed and blush. Michela says that like flowers which grow without the fear of dying one day, the group will do the same and announces that the group will be called Sword Roses then. Oliver likes this and wants the image of the moment to be burned in his mind, so that he never forgets it. After some time, the group and other students find themselves in a forest where they get confronted by chimera monsters. They decide to run away, but Pete, along two other students, Faye and Joseph, falls down while running and gets grabbed by the monster. Oliver tries to take Pete's hand and free him, but the monster tries to grab him too, so Michela stops him and lets Pete get taken away. As the other students are being told to return to their dorms, Oliver comes running to inform the teachers about what happened. He finds out that there are reports of the same thing happening to other students as well. The teachers conclude that the reason is that Ofilia has been consumed by the spell and is kidnapping the students. This reminds Oliver of the time Ofilia told him to stay in school and not adventure outside, especially in the next few months. Ofilia tries to keep calm in her workshop. She has caged the students she took, but she hasn't harmed them yet. The student body council gets ready to confront Ofilia and get the students back, but they also blame themselves for what Ofilia has done and her getting consumed by the spell. Oliver and his friends worry about Pete since days have passed and he hasn't come back. Guy gets even more angry because the student council looks like they are slacking off. The others tells him to calm down because getting emotional isn't going to help, but so is just sitting and waiting. Oliver tells him that there's nothing they can do besides wait, but Guy is determined to try something. He wants to give himself up to Ofilia so that he can go and cook for Pete. However, Nano tells him that dead people can't eat, and the only way to feed them is to leave something at their grave, suggesting that Pete could be dead. This makes Guy angry because he doesn't believe that Pete could be dead. Nano tells him that she's not sure, but in her country, if 10 people went missing in war, 8 of them would turn up dead. Oliver stops her from being too pessimistic, stating that Ophilia's chimeras were designed to take people alive. So it's likely that he's still alive. Katie wonders what Ofilia could be doing to Pete, but nobody knows. Michela decides to go to the next class because sitting there and arguing about what they all don't know isn't going to help anyone. Later, Oliver goes to meet with Gwyn and Shannon. He asks them to help rescue Pete, and they tell him that they were going to go with the student council to find Ophilia's lair, which is located in the 3rd layer of the Labyrinth. It's going to be hard to find the place, and they can't use their comrades' help yet, but they promise to try their best to find him. Katie goes to ask for help from Mr. Garland, but he refuses to help her at the moment because teachers have to wait 8 days before they can get involved. It's because teachers won't bail students out of trouble immediately. The students have to look after themselves. Michela meets with Oliver and tells him that she went to ask for help from her father. He told her that if she can't protect her friends, then she will lose them the minute she gains them. This made her decide to go to the Labyrinth, and she wanted to tell him before she goes there. Oliver is against the idea because she could die there, but she is determined. She tells him that when the chimeras grabbed Pete, she quickly realized that they wouldn't kill him, and she wanted the rest of them to survive by not going after the chimeras. She begs Oliver to let her go because she will not be able to face Pete the same way again. Oliver decides that he will go with her, but she refuses. If the others find out that the two of them were going, they would follow behind as well. Milligan appears, her hair covering her left eye, and tells them that all they're doing is deciding whether one or both of them will die. She asks to talk to them at the greenhouse, along with Katie. Oliver doesn't understand why Katie is selling herself to Milligan, but Katie says that if that's what it takes to save her friend, she will do it. Milligan praises them for their friendship, that they are willing to sacrifice themselves to save each other. Oliver asks to rescind the offer that Katie made to Milligan because she didn't even consult with her friends first. He asks Milligan what the chances of Pete surviving at the hands of Ofilia are since Milligan and Ofilia are the same year. Milligan tells him that she knows what kind of a person Ofilia is and what is happening to her at the moment. And knowing what kind of a person Pete is, she estimates that he only has a 20% survival chance. The reason is because Ofilia would do anything for her research, but what she does takes time, which is why there's even a chance for Pete to survive. However, Oliver and his friends can increase the chances if they do something. Oliver asks what she means, but she changes the subject. She talks about how her research has reached a dead end since Darius has gone missing. She wants Katie to help her because they both have a common interest in interspecies communication. She wants Katie to join her research because she was the key to giving intelligence to the troll she once encountered. Milligan proposes that she trains the students even though Ofilia is much stronger than her. They won't be able to fight head-on with her and win, but they can one her up and save Pete. Milligan will find her lair and take them there. After all is done, she wants Katie to become her research partner. Katie immediately accepts the offer. She tells Oliver and Michela that she will not let them refuse her because the deal is not too bad. However, Oliver doesn't trust Milligan. He thinks she's hiding something, and she says that figuring out what she's hiding is part of the deal. Katie begs the two to accept the deal. In the end, they accept the deal and bring everyone to Milligan. They use her portal to go to the Labyrinth, but Katie and Guy stay behind. Katie is tasked with looking after a live hand, which will help her access Milligan's research notes if Milligan doesn't make it back. Katie accepts, and the group departs. Pete wakes up in Ophilia's lair and starts to panic when he sees the other students who are sleeping, with tentacles wrapped around their necks. He pretends to be asleep when Ofilia comes to tell them to continue sleeping, and that at the end, it will all be just a bad dream before leaving. The group makes it to the Labyrinth and Milligan tells them about Ophilia's clan whose ancestors were succubi. This makes them capable of mixing the natures of different species together within the womb and birth the offspring. They wanted to create the perfect life form for many generations, but they failed, which made them go extinct little by little. Now, they use their wombs to create synthetic beasts to perform a variety of tasks for them. Recently, Ofilia created the chimeras she used to kidnap the students, and that takes a lot of mana. That's why she kidnapped the students. She wants to squeeze the mana out of them in order to create more chimeras or something more sinister. Michela asks if it hurts the students, but Milligan says that Ofilia must have put them to sleep so they won't feel anything. They'll weaken by the time their vitality has worn out. When Michela asks what vitality means, Milligan explains that Ofilia drains out the semen because she only needs male mana. The group becomes concerned, and Nano reveals to Milligan that Pete is a reversey. Oliver doesn't want her to reveal this information, but she argues that Milligan is an ally and is risking her life to help them. As they continue to walk, the group asks Milligan what Ofilia will do to Pete when she finds out that he's a reversey. Milligan responds that this will frustrate Ofilia because she'll see it as a hindrance and hurt him. So they need to hurry in order to save him in time. They reach an area where they find a chimera blocking their way to the second layer. Milligan tells the students that they need to be third years to be able to defeat it because it's out of their league, so she resolves to deal with it herself, telling them to watch and learn. Milligan charges the creature and gives the students lessons on what to do next time they're confronted by the same situation. First, they have to understand the monster's weakness. The chimera is blind and uses its tentacles to find and feel things like the decoys she created, which may be a threat to it. Second, when the students fight, they need to make sure that they weaken the monster before they go all out on their finishing blow. But at the same time, they should make sure that they don't drag the fight for too long. Third, they need to fight with a plan in mind that will eventually lead them to that final blow, which will end the fight. However, they need to be careful because the chimeras are not stupid, and even with being blind, they can still tell what's a threat and what's not. Milligan says this as she stops rushing the monster and walking as simple as the decoys she created. She explains that the chimera has recognized the pattern of movement made by the decoys, which she imitates to fool the chimera. The chimera doesn't touch her because it thinks she's not a threat, allowing her to get closer to it and deal her final blow. The students are impressed because she made it look easy. She tells them that it might have looked easy, but doing all the steps on their own without each other's help is the difficult part. They need to work together to make it work. Nano chooses to do the last step, which will bring about the end to the chimera. She encourages the others to try their best because they worked together before and they won. Milligan agrees because if they hadn't won in the past, she wouldn't have tried to help them. Michela tells Nano to stop trying to be the one who puts herself in danger for others. They will do all of the 3 steps together, and Nano understands, telling Michela that she will try her best to think better going forward. Milligan then tells them that they will enter the second layer of the labyrinth, which is a forest. They make it there and walk for a very long time till they reach a cave. In the cave, they take rest, and while the others are sleeping, Milligan and Oliver sit around the fire. Oliver can't sleep because he's worried about Pete. Milligan asks him why they are risking their lives for Pete even though they haven't known him for that long. Oliver tells her about the first time he met Pete and the others during the entrance ceremony. When Katie was in trouble, they all came together to help save her life. He says that Pete was non-magical and must have been scared by the situation, but he didn't run away even though that would have been fine. He helped them save Katie, and now they want to help save him too without running away. Milligan thinks this is a beautiful thing for their friendship. She likes it, but she isn't interested in any of it. She is only interested in Oliver. She doesn't understand how he is an average mage, but still the same as Nano and Michela. Both the two girls were born in extraordinary places or families, while Oliver is just another student with no special talent. She thinks that something must have happened in his past to make up for his lack of talent, that it led him to where he is now. Oliver becomes wary of Milligan, but she says that she's not going to ask what it is that happened to him. She just worries for him more than she worries for the others. The next day, they all prepare to go to the third layer by taking a boat and traveling through a lake. Oliver telepathically tells Ms. Karst, who has been following them since, to go back to the surface because he's going through a lake now. Ms. Karst understands as she watches him get ready to leave. Milligan gives the group another lesson before they leave. She shows them the lake walk, which allows her to walk on water. She explains that the technique requires a mastery of all the fundamental elements of special magic. She asks Michela and Oliver to give it a try because they know about it. Oliver thinks that he can't do it because he was told the first years are not equipped enough to use it yet. But Milligan tells them to try it even if they fail. When Oliver and Michela hesitate, Nano rushes to try first, but she sinks to the bottom and becomes bummed out because she wasn't able to figure it out. Oliver goes in next and thinks about how he'll pour his mana onto the water's surface and distribute his weight evenly on both of his legs. This works and he's able to stand on the water. Milligan tells him to walk then, and he remembers his mother who would glide on the water's surface as if skating on ice. She told him that he'd be able to do it someday too. Oliver uses the same technique his mother used and glides on the water, which impresses his friends. He asks Nano to join him, and she does, finally able to stand on the water and walk on it as well. Milligan prompts Michela to join them as well, and she does so successfully. This makes Milligan feel responsible for their lives and wishes that they could return back safe. After, they take the boat and travel across the lake. They discuss the spell that Milligan has used to create wind around the sails of the boat to move it accordingly. But at that moment, they find skeletal remains of the beasts that Cyrus has collected. He appears and immediately blocks their way, making Milligan stop the boat before they crash into him. He asks why they're there, and when Milligan tells him, he becomes hostile. He tells them that if they want to end up dead, he should clap them himself so that he can use their corpses in his research. The students panic and try to draw their swords, but Michela asks to cooperate with him. She says he doesn't have a reason to be on the third layer either, so he must be there to be the first to get Ofilia's research results. However, Cyrus denies this. He has no interest in Ofilia's research. Milligan then assumes that he's there to be the last one to see her alive, but Cyrus denies this too. He says that he's there to attend Ofilia's funeral. Milligan asks him why he's making a fuss if he's just there to attend a funeral. She asks this as she prepares a spell behind her back, which Oliver notices. But she doesn't use the spell because a water chimera appears from the water and attacks Cyrus' monster. Milligan pretends to want to fight with the chimera, but activates the wind spell again and leaves the scene, leaving Cyrus to deal with the chimera alone. Later, when everything's calm, Milligan thanks Michela for buying them time. Nano asks Oliver what Milligan meant when she asked if Cyrus wanted to be Ofilia's last visitor. Oliver tells her that when someone has been consumed by the spell, one person is allowed to visit them to witness their death. They continue their journey and arrive at the island where Ofilia is and rescue Pete. Pete later wakes up and sees that his friends have saved him. Oliver rushes to hug him and tells him that he did great by staying alive. Pete becomes emotional and cries. They ask him how he managed to escape, and he tells them the story. When he was still in Ofilia's workshop, Joseph woke up and they started talking. Joseph figured out that Pete had changed into a girl because Ofilia's perfume didn't affect him. Pete asked him to help him escape, but Joseph stopped him from talking too loudly because if Ofilia found out about his identity, she would clap him. He told Pete that the situation could be taken advantage of though. He cut himself on the stomach and stuck his hand inside, which scared Pete. He pulled out 3 orbs, which were an explosive, smoke, and distress orbs that he gave to Pete to use and break out of the place. He could also use them to call for help after waiting for Ofilia to leave the workshop. Joseph told Pete that he was entrusting him with his life and asked for his name. After some time, Joseph stopped sensing Ophilia's presence in the workshop and told Pete to get ready to put their plan in motion. Pete used the explosive orb to destroy the cage they were in and used the smoke orb to get away from Ophilia's chimeras that were guarding the place. He found his way out of the place and used the distress orb to create a signal for someone to find him. However, while doing that, he fell to the ground, which he slowly got sucked into. He started to think about his friends and how he didn't want to die there. Luckily, he was found by his friends who saved him. Right then, Ofilia appears in front of them and pulls out a knife to fight them. She asks Milligan what she's doing there, and Milligan tells her that she just wanted to help her underclassmen save their friends. She explains that they aren't there to interrupt what she's doing and asks to be let go. But Ofilia tells her that she's no longer human and won't be able to sympathize with her because she has reached the pinnacle of her clan's magic. She begins to chant an incantation, and Milligan tells the group to start attacking her before she finishes her spell. However, even with their efforts combined, they can't do anything to Ofilia as her tentacles defend her while she continues to set up her spell. Gwen and Shannon witness Ophilia's spell come to life from afar, creating a large dome around her and the others, making Shannon become worried for Oliver. As the spell continues to encapsulate the whole place, Ophilia's tentacles continue to fight against the students. After her spell is complete, the dome becomes completely cut off from the outside world. It's a grand area, which is the greatest and most impressive magic feat achieved by someone who uses a single magic. Milligan is impressed that Ofilia was able to achieve grand area at such a young age, even while being consumed by the spell. Two other students appear. One of them is Michella's relative named Stacy. The other is Lynette. They came there to save Faye, Stacy's attendant. Milligan briefs all of them that they are currently inside Ophilia's womb and that she has rejected the idea of creating a new life form. Instead, she has taken another idea, creating endless chimera. They will no longer be able to leave the area unless Ofilia lifts the spell or dies. The students get ready, and Milligan tells them to get into their true forms to use all their power. She asks Lynette to put a barrier around them, even when Lynette says she's not confident in her skills. Once inside the barrier, Oliver tells them that Michella and Milligan are the key to their attack with their firepower, and that the rest of them have to make sure that Ofilia or her chimeras don't get close to them. They all agree, and Michella and Milligan uses their fire magic to attack some of the chimeras, which amuses Ofilia. Milligan goes to taunt and mock Ofilia about her past. She tells her that the reason she refuses to die now is because she's trying to hold on to life because of her first love. She compares her to a swamp snake falling in love with a unicorn because she liked Alvin. This angers Ofilia, who screams for her to shut up. But Milligan continues that even if she and Alvin had worked out, she would have just stolen his seed and never loved him because that's the kind of person she is. This infuriates Ofilia even more. She sends her chimeras to go after Milligan, but Milligan and Michella burn all the chimeras down. Milligan tries to get closer to Ofilia, but Ofilia quickly grabs her with one of her tentacles. The motion makes Milligan's hair reveal her left eye, and Ofilia makes eye contact with her. This causes her to turn into stone. Milligan is happy to see that Ofilia is still human and is affected by her eye, but Ofilia breaks off the spell, revealing that the magic doesn't work on her anymore. She tightens the tentacles around Milligan's body, causing her pain as she begins to worry about the other students. Even when Milligan is in the worst state, she continues to taunt Ofilia about achieving the highest feat in magic, but still holding on to the past like she's innocent. This makes Ofilia decide to crush her, once and for all. She yells that they don't know anything about her. At that moment, Alvin and Carlos arrive outside the grand area and ask Ofilia where the students she kidnapped are. Ofilia brings some of them out and tells them that she doesn't need them anymore. Before she can leave, Alvin stops her and asks her to draw her sword because he's not going to just let her go. Inside the grand area, Ophilia's chimeras start to lose power and move away from the students. Oliver asks the students to create a distraction while Nano tries to get close to Ofilia and clap her. They all agree, getting on their brooms and targeting the chimeras. The chimeras attack back, and some of the students fall off their brooms. Oliver tries not to fall, but he ends up falling as well. He shouts for Nano to head for Ofilia. Nano does as told, and as she's swinging her sword down to Ofilia, she sees her crying, which makes her hesitate. Then, one of Ophilia's tentacles hits her, and she falls to the ground. Oliver walks over to her, and Nano apologizes for hesitating. She tells him that Ofilia is only a child, and she can't clap a crying child. Oliver comforts her, and they all get up to fight against the chimeras again. Michela apologizes to Pete for failing to save him, but Pete gets up and stands with her, sword in hand, ready to fight too, which makes Michela hopeful. Ofilia continues to cry for all the regrets she has and how lonely she was. She wishes she didn't have a name because if she wasn't born a Salvadori, she would have been something more than just a womb. She misses the times she worked well with Alvin and the others. Being who she is made her realize how terrifying it was to fall in love. At that moment, they hear singing and the grand area starts to break. Alvin and Carlos appear. They walk up to Ofilia and apologize for making her wait, which makes her happy to see them. Carlos walks even closer, but Ofilia doesn't want him to because her tentacles keep hitting him. However, Carlos just lets it be. Oliver runs to them, worrying about Carlos, but Alvin stops him because only Carlos can do this. Carlos tells Ofilia not to be in a rush as he takes off his choker and throws it into the air. The choker glows, and when it hits the walls of the grand area, the dome starts to crumble, and he continues to sing. Oliver asks Alvin what is happening, and Alvin explains. Ofilia's and Carlos' families had a pact, and Carlos was sent to be with Ofilia if she ever was consumed by the spell. Carlos was able to break the grand area on his own by singing his song, which was frozen in time. Oliver figures that Carlos is a castrato, which is why he has a high-pitched voice. His song resists any sexual magic that exists, which makes him perfect for Ofilia. Carlos continues to sing while walking towards Ofilia, who keeps resisting and asking him to stay away. Ofilia remembers the time when they were young and Carlos promised to always make her happy always. He gets to her and hugs her, apologizing for not keeping his promise. Ofilia continues to cry and Carlos tells her that he loves her forever and ever. Ofilia responds that she hates him and hugs him back, causing the spell around them to start lifting. The sight makes Alvin emotional. He says farewell to his best friend and Carlos says it back, but only in his mind. As the spell lifts, Ofilia and Carlos join hands and disappear together. The students are brought back to the labyrinth and Oliver meets Gwen and Shannon, who were worried about him. All the students go back to the surface where they meet with their friends and teachers. Katie is happy to see Pete and Faye reunites with Lynette and Stacy. All the other students are relieved to see the ones who were kidnapped and Joseph is among them. Oliver and his friends form their sword rose to symbolize the strength of their friendship once more. Oliver thinks that the end that Ofilia met was a better one, which is unlikely. As the friends go back to their dorms, they meet the teachers on the way and bow in respect or fear. As the teachers pass, Oliver admits that there's no point in imagining what his end will be because he knows where he's headed. His smile fades when all the teachers have passed because he can only pretend for so longer before their time to die comes. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.